Hey everybody, Jason Cooper here from Kickstarted. We have another Funded Friday. It's been a bit, but we're hopefully going to get back on the things. His name is Dahlman, and he is of many projects on Kickstarter. He's done 9 so far, all of which I believe are of the playing card or card game variety. And rather than mistell you what the most recent one is, although it's pretty straightforward, I will let Erik sort of just give a quick overview, if you don't mind, of why don't you tell me a bit about your first project, and then you can tell me about the Goonies card game, or the cards that you're doing right now.
Sure. The first project that we had was actually called Gene Grafter. I did it back in, I think, September of 2011, so it was quite a while ago. Um, did about 15,000, just like you said, basic card game project. Um, kind of got me started on this whole path of using Kickstarter. So fast forward now, we're about 10 projects in. We're working on the Goonies, which is a 52 card deck that's themed as the Goonies movie from 1985. We're working with Nat Iwata, who's also done about 5 Kickstarter projects. It's doing really well right now. Basically, only have 2 things up there: the deck itself and a custom coin that goes with it. And that's pretty much the project in a nutshell. Like we've really scaled back on what we've done in the past.
Well, it's sort of amazing. Like, and maybe my next question is this: so this is your 9th project, all of which are the card, in the card world. Is this your total business? Is this the business that you're in, like what you do, or are there other things that you do in addition to Kickstarter?
No, this is pretty much it. We started on tabletop board gaming. We found a lot of success when we kind of branched out and tried card games. So at this point, we've had more success with card games, but we're still trying to stick with our tabletop roots.
Well, before I get a little deep in that, I want to ask you, like, you've been on Kickstarter and crowdfunding since 2011. What was it that attracted you to it as a platform in the first place? Why did you decide that this was a model that you wanted to embrace?
I actually started as a backer before I ever considered doing anything as a creator. It all started when I was at corporate office and somebody sent out an email for a project. I think it was the Zombie Run project, where it was basically an app that it had like a storyline that would help you kind of get out there and keep running like on a regular basis. You'd be chased by zombies and you'd be running from one location to another collecting supplies. And I thought it was really cool. I started researching it. I started backing a lot of other projects, and I got to the point where I probably backed like somewhere between 50 and 100 projects before I launched my first one.
And now you are up to, I think it was 241
Yeah,
projects
whatever number.
that you've backed, which is insane. Do you use other platforms in Kickstarter, or are you only on Kickstarter?
I only use Kickstarter. I tried signing up for a project on Indiegogo once, and it was kind of a lengthy sign-up process, so I bailed about halfway through.
Okay, well that's interesting as well. Uh, Maybe just because you've had a wealth of experience as a backer, and I don't think there are many other people who have backed. I mean, there are people that have backed like 5,000 projects. What is it that you see in a project that ultimately, like, if you had to generalize it down to 1 or 2 things, like, what is it that you look for in a project that helps you decide that it's worthy or not of your pledge?
But really, at this point, it's gotten to where I've had to scale things back. So when I back something now, it's because I see something that's really unique that probably won't be done outside of Kickstarter, because it's such a like its own new thing, to where it's probably not going to get any kind of VC, any kind of venture funding or anything like that. So Kickstarter might be the only way that it could see the light of day. I think the Reading Rainbow project out right now is a good example of that.
Yeah, and that's a really incredible project to watch. We've been excited, sort of following that along since the other day, and who knows where that will be by the time I put this video up, probably over $3 million in 3 days, which is just insane. But so cool and great for the platform. Um, so popular on Kickstarter. What is it about? Because you're not the only person that's doing it, and you've had like not just a small amount of success. You've had like a ton of success. If I can quickly just recap some of your goals here, you raised $136,000 for a Princess Bride themed playing card set, $589,000 for a set of cards based around Name of the Wind, and then $67,000 here, $31,000 there, $38,000, $96,000. You're probably close to $1 million. I didn't do the math, but what is it that makes card games so successful, and then what has made you so successful in particular?
There are a few things. I think one was that we had a lot of engagement with our backers early on. When we were originally doing the card sets, we would have backers come into like hangouts like this one and actually draw the cards, and they would be able to give feedback and input during the design process. Unfortunately, we've had to get a little bit away from that as we start doing licensing for things like the Princess Bride and Goonies. I mean, obviously, I can't offer a likeness for something into the Goonies property, and there's a lot tighter licensing restrictions. But I think that really helped us kind of build that core fan base to begin with. And then just the fact that a lot of these things don't exist, because I always try and make things that I want to see, and I figure if I can be excited about it, then other people will be too.
Did you have like an interest and passion for playing cards before all of this? Like it to me, and again, maybe I didn't understand the niche, but it's something that it thrives in particular in crowdfunding and on Kickstarter. Was there like a market that wasn't being served that crowdfunding has really filled?
I wasn't really into cards. Like, I mean, I played a lot of poker and card games and things before, but I was never a collector. After doing these projects, I've found there are, these niche groups where they're looking for these types of cards. But I think part of our success has been in that we're using much more the kind of themes and movies and books that have a lot more mass market appeal. Things like Cthulhu, it had a really large following. Everyone's seen like The Princess Bride or The Goonies. I mean, those are things that people can relate to and recognize easily.
Very cool. And so maybe, since this is called Funded Friday and we like to talk to people that have had some success, one thing I like to mention is that there's no particular model that works for everybody. And we get a lot of requests like, hey, what are the keys to crowdfunding? So I like to pose it to everybody we talk to, like what are the one or two things, and I know you mentioned engaging with people, but if you could be a little bit more specific, like what are the one or two things that work for you in terms of building your community and having so much success on Kickstarter?
Well, the first one was, like I said, with the Hangouts and just giving people input into the design. I think it's important, even at those small levels, to be able to put out updates that pose questions that allow them to interact with you. Because if they feel like they're engaging within the project and they're not just along for the ride, they tend to be a lot more vocal about promoting it and going out. And that's the other thing, is just doing tons of advertising and trying to set up like your blog posts and your podcasts and all that kind of stuff beforehand, because a lot of times people get to like that plateau in their project and then they start clamoring trying to figure out how to advertise and all that, and by then it's already too late. You should have already started that before you began your project.
That is very, very smart, practical advice, so thank you for that. You mentioned before, and I wanted to get back to it, that this is sort of your business. You are a crowdfunder, and you go project by project. Do you think that's a sustainable model, and not only for yourself, but just in general for other people like you who have built a community of people that are not paying attention, who've learned how this model works, what goes into it? Where do you see this, that particular path going, and is it something that you want to continue to do for a while?
It's interesting you say that because this is actually probably one of the last projects we're going to do on Kickstarter, at least for playing cards. One thing that I noticed on this particular project is that we've got such a large base that we launch with that we're starting to eclipse any of the traffic that comes in from Kickstarter. The way that they've changed their search model to like that magic formula as opposed to like most popular, we don't always stay at the top of the list anymore. So we're actually getting to the point where we're almost spending more money to be on Kickstarter than if we just ran the product ourselves and put it out there on our website. So Kickstarter's been exactly what it's supposed to, and it's helped kickstart the company. But I think we've almost grown to the point where we can move away from it and we won't be tied to it anymore.
But you'll still be crowdfunding, yeah?
I'll still be backing projects, and for the things that I don't think that we could back or create on our own, like the bigger board games with the miniatures and things like that, we'll be going to Kickstarter for those. Those have huge overhead costs, and Kickstarter's always been good to really test an idea and make sure that it's marketable to begin with.
Great, and just because this is something that I think is really fascinating, and I like to talk about the long tail of crowdfunding. A lot of people will look at these projects, and most people who approach crowdfunding as a creator will do one project and then move on to the next thing. It isn't necessarily a business that they're building. But there are a handful of people that use Kickstarter and Indiegogo and the other tools that are out there to raise money to start a business that they then perpetuate into the future and do, and hire people, add to the economy. So I want to hear a little bit more about, Albino Dragon and what you guys are building there as a business, because I think that it's a great example of how powerful crowdfunding can be in a general sense. It's not just a project-to-project thing, that it's a real business.
A lot of the key for us, I mean, we've only got one other employee at this point, but we've started outsourcing a lot of things. We went from me doing fulfillment in my apartment to having a full-fledged fulfillment center that handles all of that. So we outsourced that so that we have more time for design and development. We started doing a lot more conventions. Doing some of the larger projects is springboard into other large projects. So now we're actually networking a lot more of our business ties for things like licensing. We've gotten a lot bigger deals for retailers. At this point we're starting to get to that size where hopefully you'll see us in something like a Target or a Barnes & Noble or something someday. But that's pretty much what Kickstarter has allowed us to get to as a business, which, short of showing up on something like Shark Tank or something like that, I don't think we would have been able to do it in such a small amount of time like we have.
Well, I think that's a testament to you as a creator and someone who sort of saw the potential, and obviously a great example of the power of crowdfunding. So Erik, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for being a backer of Kickstarted. I love having a backer on the show and getting able to talk to you about your campaigns. I'm sad to hear that this is going to be one of the last ones you guys do for a while, but it's doing very well for people who are interested in backing it. The Goonies playing cards are still up on Kickstarter probably by the time this goes up for another 5 days, and you guys have currently raised $38,000 against a $10,000 goal, so it is definitely going through, and these guys are definitely capable of delivering. So it's a project worth backing if you're a Goonies fan, for sure. So thank you, Erik. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Jason.
All right, we'll see everybody next week.